Ready for a deep dive into a well, life that was anything but ordinary.
Oh, absolutely.
Today, today we're stepping back in time
Okay.
to 18th century London,
All right.
a world of powdered wigs,
Mm-hmm.
political intrigue,
Right.
and a woman who captivated everyone she met.
Oh, wow.
Georgiana Cavendish, the Duchess of Devonshire.
Interesting.
We'll be using 2 episodes of the Noble Blood podcast as our guide.
Okay.
And trust me, you'll want to grab a cup of tea and settle in for this one.
I can't wait.
So,
What's so fascinating about her story
yeah.
is that it's not just a historical drama. It's surprisingly relevant even today. We're talking about a woman who was thrust into the spotlight at a young age,
Yeah.
navigating marriage, motherhood,
Oh, wow.
social pressures, and even finding her own voice in a world that often tried to silence women.
That's so true. And think about the fashion.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Imagine having to travel lying down in your carriage just to keep your 3-foot-tall wig from toppling over. That's commitment to style.
Yeah.
But let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Georgina, at just 17 years old,
Wow.
marries William Cavendish, the Duke of Devonshire.
Mm-hmm.
It's a match designed to solidify power and influence for both families.
Yeah.
But it's hardly a love story, is it?
Not exactly, no. The Duke, it seems, was far more interested in politics and his own pursuits than in his young bride.
Oh.
It's a pattern we see throughout their marriage, this disconnect between their expectations and the reality of their relationship.
So while the Duke's off doing his own thing, Georgina becomes the darling of London society. She's witty, charming,
Right.
and a fashion icon,
Yes.
setting trends that everyone wants to follow. Can you imagine a world where people are copying your hairstyles and outfits?
Oh my God.
Talk about influencer goals.
Yeah, she truly captivated the public imagination. And it wasn't just about her appearance. She used her platform to engage in political discussions, advocate for causes she believed in,
Wow.
and even write a novel that challenged societal norms.
Okay, tell me more about this novel.
All right.
It's called The Sylph, right?
Yes.
And it was published anonymously. That sounds intriguing.
It is, and it's much more than just a society romance.
All right.
The novel tackles some pretty dark themes like marital abuse and the pain of miscarriage.
Wow.
Issues that were rarely discussed openly at the time, especially among the upper classes.
Interesting.
It makes you wonder if she was drawing on her own experiences, using fiction as a way to explore the difficult realities many women face.
That's such a good point. It adds another layer to her story.
Exactly.
This idea that beneath the glamorous facade, there's a depth and complexity that we're only beginning to understand.
Exactly. And this complexity extends to her social circle as well.
Oh.
She becomes the center of the Devonshire house circle.
Okay.
A group of influential figures known for their lavish gatherings, witty banter,
Right.
and even their own unique way of speaking.
Really?
The Cavendish draw.
So they were like the trendsetters of their time.
Yes.
The people everyone wanted to be seen with?
Absolutely. They had a significant impact on politics, fashion, and even language.
Wow.
It's fascinating to see how they use their social influence to shape the world around them.
And then into this already fascinating mix enters Lady Elizabeth Foster, known as Bess.
Right.
She becomes a close friend to Georgina, but their relationship takes a rather unexpected turn.
This is where the story gets really interesting.
Okay.
Bess becomes the Duke's mistress,
Oh, wow.
creating a complex dynamic that historians still debate today. Was it a scandalous love triangle or a unique friendship born out of circumstance?
Right.
The fact that many of their letters were censored only adds to the mystery.
Okay, so we've got a young duchess in a loveless marriage, captivating social circle,
Yeah.
a scandalous affair,
Right.
and now a potential love triangle. It sounds like a soap opera set in the 1700s.
It does have all the elements of a compelling drama, doesn't it?
It does.
But there's also a real human story here. One that speaks to the complexities of relationships, the constraints placed on women, and the search for love and connection in a society defined by strict rules and expectations.
And just when you think things can't get any more complicated, Georgina finally gives birth to a son and heir after years of trying.
Oh, wow.
You'd think this would be a moment of pure joy and relief, but
It is a victory, of course.
yeah.
Especially in a time when producing an heir was crucial for securing a family's legacy.
Right.
But the underlying issues in her marriage remain unresolved.
And then, of course, she falls head over heels for Charles Grey, a charismatic politician.
Oh.
It's a passionate affair that has serious consequences.
This is where the stakes get incredibly high.
Yeah.
Not only is she risking social ruin, but she also becomes pregnant with Grey's child. Imagine the pressure she must have felt,
Oh my God.
caught between her heart and her duty.
It's heartbreaking to think about. The Duke gives her an ultimatum.
Oh.
Give up the child in the affair, or lose access to her other children. What a terrible position to be in.
It highlights the limited choices women had at the time.
Hmm?
Societal expectations and patriarchal structures dictated their lives, leaving them with few options when faced with such difficult situations.
So she makes the agonizing choice to protect her children and is sent to France to give birth in secret.
Oh, wow.
And as if things weren't dramatic enough, this is all happening during the French Revolution.
It's a testament to her resilience that she not only survives childbirth, but also navigates the dangers of exile during one of the most tumultuous periods in European history.
And she pours out her heartache in letters to her children.
Wow.
Even writing some in her own blood, it's hard to fathom the depth of her emotions during this time.
These letters are incredibly moving.
Yeah.
They offer a raw, unfiltered glimpse into her emotional state, revealing the depths of her love for her children and the sacrifices she was willing to make for them.
But here's a surprising twist. Bess chooses to go into exile with Georgina,
Oh.
providing support and companionship during this incredibly difficult time. It's not exactly what you'd expect given the circumstances.
It's a complicated relationship, to say the least.
Yeah.
But Bess's actions demonstrate a level of loyalty and compassion that defies easy categorization.
Right.
It suggests that their bond went far beyond the typical social conventions of the time.
Right. And it makes you wonder what their conversations were like during those years in exile. What secrets did they share? What kind of understanding did they forge? I guess we'll never know for sure.
That's the allure of history, isn't it? We get glimpses into these lives, these moments, but so much remains hidden beneath the surface.
Yeah.
It invites us to speculate, to imagine, to fill in the blanks with our own interpretations.
Okay, so we've got Georgina exiled in France, heartbroken, but finding solace in Bess's companionship. But what's happening back in England? How is the Duke reacting to all of this?
Well, the Duke's reaction is a mix of anger and calculation. He's furious, of course, about the affair and the pregnancy, but he's also concerned about appearances and the potential damage to his reputation.
So he's not exactly heartbroken over the betrayal, more worried about how it makes him look.
Yeah, I think you're right. It does seem to be more about control than genuine emotional distress.
Yeah.
He banishes Georgina to France, but allows Bess and her daughter Caroline, who she'd had with the Duke, to return after a time.
Wait a minute, Bess had the Duke's child
Yes.
while they were all living together under the same roof. Okay, now this is getting really juicy.
It certainly adds another layer of complexity to their relationship, and it raises questions about the nature of their arrangement. Did they have an understanding? Was there jealousy? The sources don't give us the full picture, but it's clear that Bess was operating with a level of agency and independence that was unusual for women of her time.
You know, it's easy to look back and judge these relationships based on our modern sensibilities, but we have to remember that the social norms and expectations were very different back then.
Absolutely. What might seem shocking or scandalous to us was often accepted or at least tolerated within the confines of aristocratic society. The key is to understand the context, the power dynamics, and the individual motivations at play.
Okay, so let's dive into that a bit. There's been a lot of speculation about the nature of the relationship between Georgina and Bess. Was it purely platonic? Were they lovers? What did the sources tell us?
That's the million-dollar question, and unfortunately, we may never have a definitive answer.
Right.
The historical record is incomplete, with many letters censored or destroyed, likely to protect reputations and sanitize the narrative for future generations.
Oh, the things those letters could tell us. But I guess that's part of the allure of history. It's like a giant puzzle with missing pieces, and we're left to try and make sense of what we have.
Exactly. But even with the missing pieces, there are clues that suggest their bond went beyond a conventional friendship. Georgina herself wrote in a letter, "Who has any right to know how long or how tenderly we love one another?" It's a powerful statement that speaks to the intensity of their connection and their defiance of societal norms.
That's a fantastic quote. It suggests that they recognized the uniqueness of their bond and weren't afraid to challenge conventional notions of female relationships.
And let's not forget that Bess chose to accompany Georgina into exile, even though it meant leaving behind her own daughter. That's a significant sacrifice, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It speaks volumes about the depth of their connection. But I'm also curious about the Duke's reaction to all of this. Was he aware of the closeness between Georgina and Bess? How did he feel about it?
The Duke's reactions are intriguing. He seems to have compartmentalized his relationships with both women. He was content with Bess as his mistress and valued her companionship. But he also recognized the value of Georgina's social and political influence. Remember, she was a major asset to his position and ambitions.
So he was willing to overlook certain indiscretions as long as it served his own interests.
It seems that way. He was a pragmatist focused on maintaining his power and status, and in that sense, both women played important roles in his life, albeit in very different ways.
It's fascinating how these relationships played out within the constraints of their social world. But let's not forget about Georgina's exile. The Duke allowed Bess to return to England, but kept Georgina in France for 2 years. What was that about? Was it just punishment, or was there something else going on?
I think it's a combination of factors. There's definitely an element of punishment, a way for the Duke to assert his dominance and remind Georgina who's in charge. But there might also be a strategic element to it. Remember, this is a time of immense social and political upheaval. The French Revolution is raging, and England is on edge by keeping Georgina away. The Duke is distancing himself from potential scandal and protecting his own reputation.
It makes sense that he wouldn't want to be associated with someone who could be seen as sympathetic to the French revolutionaries, especially given his own political ambitions. But it must have been incredibly difficult for Georgina being separated from her children and living in such uncertain times.
It was undoubtedly a traumatic experience. Imagine the fear, the loneliness, the sense of isolation. And during those 2 years, her young son almost went deaf due to a lack of proper care. It's heartbreaking to think about the ripple effects of their actions, how the children were caught in the middle of this complex web of relationships.
It's a reminder that even in the most privileged of circles, there's still pain, loss, and consequences. But eventually, Georgina is allowed to return to England. What's the state of her relationship with the Duke at this point?
It's strained to say the least. The warmth and trust that might have existed earlier in their marriage are long gone. They're essentially co-parents who are bound by duty and social expectations, but there's very little genuine affection left between them.
Yeah, on top of that, she learns that Charles Grey, the man she sacrificed so much for, is now engaged to someone else. Talk about adding insult to injury.
It must have been a devastating blow. It's a stark reminder that passionate love doesn't always conquer all, especially when societal pressures and personal ambitions come into play. And as if all of this wasn't enough, she then becomes seriously ill.
This poor woman, it seems like she can't catch a break. What was the nature of this illness? Was it life-threatening?
It's described as debilitating, with intense headaches, swelling, and eventually vision loss in one eye. The treatments themselves were excruciating, involving leeches and other rather barbaric practices. She's left with lasting scars on her face, a stark contrast to the image of youthful beauty she once projected.
It's incredible that she was able to endure all of this. It makes you wonder what inner strength she drew upon to keep going. Did she retreat from society after this ordeal?
Initially, yes, she does withdraw from public life. She's self-conscious about her appearance and emotionally drained from her experiences, but eventually something remarkable happens. She finds a new path, one that doesn't rely on her beauty or her social standing, but on her intellect, her political acumen, and her deep-seated desire to make a difference in the world.
This is where her story takes a truly inspiring turn, isn't it? It sounds like she went through a period of profound personal transformation.
Yeah.
Almost like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
That's a great analogy. She emerges from this period of illness and loss with a renewed sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Remember, she's always been politically engaged, but now it becomes her primary focus.
Okay.
She throws herself into the task of reuniting the Whig Party,
Right.
which had fractured and lost power during her absence.
So she's not just attending fancy parties anymore.
No.
She's a political strategist, using her connections, her intelligence, and her understanding of the political landscape to bring people together and influence policy.
Exactly. She becomes a force to be reckoned with,
Wow.
organizing rallies, campaigning for candidates, and using her writing skills to sway public opinion.
Really?
It's a remarkable transformation.
And to think she's doing all of this while dealing with the lasting effects of her illness. The vision loss and the facial scarring, it speaks volumes about her determination and resilience.
It's truly inspiring. She refused to be defined by her circumstances or limited by societal expectations. She found a way to channel her energy and her passion into something that gave her life meaning and purpose.
And her efforts pay off. The Whigs eventually returned to power in 1806. It must have been an incredible moment for her, seeing her hard work come to fruition.
It was a triumph, a vindication of her political skills and her unwavering commitment to the Whig cause. Imagine the satisfaction she must have felt knowing that she played a key role in shaping the political landscape of her time.
But sadly, her victory is short-lived. She dies just a few weeks later, at the young age of 48. What a bittersweet ending to such a remarkable life.
It's a poignant reminder that even the most brilliant lives are finite.
Yeah.
But her legacy lived on not just in the political sphere, but also in the realms of fashion, literature, and social reform.
Mhm.
She left an indelible mark on her world.
And even the Duke, who had been so distant and emotionally unavailable for much of their marriage, is deeply affected by her death. It makes you wonder if he finally recognized what he had lost.
It's hard to say for sure, but his reaction does suggest a level of regret, perhaps even a belated recognition of her worth.
Yeah.
Their relationship was complex and often fraught with tension. But there's a sense that he felt her absence keenly.
And what about Bess? What happens to her after Georgina's death?
Well, remember that Georgina had made Bess the sole guardian of all her papers and correspondence,
Right.
entrusting her with the preservation of her legacy and her story. And after a period of separation, Bess and the Duke actually end up getting married.
Wow. So she finally becomes the Duchess of Devonshire. But I imagine it was a bittersweet victory achieving this lifelong ambition only after the loss of her closest friend.
Exactly. And her letters from this period suggest that she genuinely mourned Georgina's death, describing her as the constant charm of my life.
Wow.
It's a reminder that even in the most complicated relationships, there can be genuine affection and a deep sense of loss.
So as we conclude this deep dive into the world of the Duchess of Devonshire, what are the key takeaways? What can we learn from her extraordinary life?
I think her story reminds us that even within the constraints of societal expectations, individuals can find ways to challenge the status quo and forge their own paths.
Right.
She was a woman of incredible intelligence, resilience, and compassion who defied easy categorization.
She was a trendsetter, a political force, a mother, a lover, a writer. She embraced life fully with all its complexities and contradictions. What resonates with you most about her story?
For me, it's her ability to reinvent herself, to find new purpose and meaning. Even after facing immense challenges and personal loss, she refused to be defined by her circumstances or limited by societal expectations. It's an inspiring message for anyone who feels stuck or constrained by the roles they've been assigned.
Well said. Her story reminds us that we all have the capacity for growth, change, and reinvention, and that even in the face of adversity, we can find ways to make our mark on the world.
And sometimes those marks are unexpected, challenging conventional norms, and leaving a lasting legacy that extends far beyond our own lifetimes.
What a fitting tribute to the extraordinary Duchess of Devonshire. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking.
It's been a pleasure exploring her world with you.
And to our listeners, if you're intrigued by this glimpse into history and want to delve deeper into the lives of fascinating figures like Georgina Cavendish, we encourage you to check out the Noble Blood podcast and be sure to subscribe to the deep dive for more captivating explorations like this one. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep discovering the hidden stories that shape our world.